You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the BQN and Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Christos, and with me today is Amy and our newest host, Kelvin.
Hello!
Hi, everybody. Hi, Amy. Hi, Christos.
Listeners, this is a new sounding voice, Kelvin from Manchester, UK. We're bringing you on board. I'm so excited to have you, Kelvin. What on earth are you doing here on All Good Things?
I'm fulfilling a lifelong ambition. That's what I'm doing, Amy. Thank you so much for inviting me. I've kind of been, appearing on various podcasts of late in Galaxy Class, What's the Tea, Bev, with you both. And
Skirts quiz.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to mention that in front of Christos.
Oh, go ahead. It's been enough time has gone by.
But now they're on our network, so we want to promote them.
Oh, yeah, go and listen to the episode. It's great. So I just thought, why don't I throw my hat in the ring and join my favorite people online and offer a few opinions, because I have some.
Listeners, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm just slowly bringing in all my favorite Trek family so that we will continue to podcast and be together forever. This is my true assimilation, just so you know.
So, a little funny story here. I'm recording an episode of What's the Tea, Bev later today, and our good friend Jason Anderson is my guest. So I was hunting for some pictures for the visuals that we do on What's the Tea, Bev. And I found a screenshot from one of our pandemic Zoom meetings that we were doing every Sunday. And when you take that screenshot now and you look at it, they're like, he podcasts. So you really have done that, Amy. You've brought us all into the BQN.
Well, my plan is working. I'm so glad that you have agreed, Kelvin. And Christos, you have your own show. We are building a podcast family that will last. It's fun to get together and talk Trek. That's why we do it.
Kelvin mentioned to me something along the lines of you're in the car and you're like listening to your friends talk and you just want to participate. And that's exactly why I did it too.
Yeah. That's the hardest thing about it, though, because obviously you're just listening to a recording. So I've been driving down the motorway screaming, wanting to say, "No, Amy, you've got the episode title wrong again." And now I can, but I won't. I won't scream at you. I'm on best behavior.
No. See, this is why we're bringing you on, so that you can get all these titles right and this trivia and, keep us straight and narrow.
I'll try my best.
This week introduces the first episode of our ongoing series entitled The Captain's Chair. The Captain's Chair is a fun series where our hosts take us on a journey through Trek to explore our personal favorites. I am excited to have the privilege to kick this off with one of my personal all-time favorite Star Trek episodes. Not just a TNG episode, but all-time favorite episodes. It is TNG's The Chase, Season 6, Episode 20. The Chase is set in 2369. I'm going to start throwing that kind of stuff in to help us with our Trek years. 2369. We all know TNG starts in 2364. This episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes, and the story was by Ronald D. Moore and Joe Menosky. And I believe Joe Menosky also wrote the teleplay. And the star date for this particular episode is 46731.5. And listeners will recall that for TNG, the second number of the star date indicates the season that the series is in. So
that is correct. And it holds true here.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the third number is the progress through the season. So we're about 3/4 of the way into season 6 here.
I don't know that this episode needs a synopsis, but we're going to give it anyway. Picard tries to finish his old archaeology teacher's monumental last mission, solving a puzzle that leads humans, Romulans, Klingons, and Cardassians to the secret of life in this galaxy, revealing the origin of humanoid life And this episode had some pretty major guest stars, including Salomon Jens as the ancient humanoid who we see at the end. And I think everyone also knows her as the founder. She also looks almost like a founder in this episode. It's a little confusing if you've watched them in reverse, if you hadn't seen this first and then see DS9 after.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah.
John Cothran Jr. as Nudak, the Klingon. We'll be talking a little bit more about him later. Maurice Roves as the Romulan captain, and Linda Thorson as the Cardassian commander Gal Osset.
I just really want to throw out what a great performance Linda Thorson did. First of all, seeing a female Cardassian, very rare. I believe that we haven't seen one except in the daughter of Chain of Command.
Yeah.
So no female Cardassian, which is a little interesting. And so we get to see her, and I think she does a great job. She channels the goals that have showed up previously. She's just gives a great commanding performance. I think she did great.
I would have loved to see more of this character. I think it would have been great to clearly have her on DS9, like they did with Gully Vec, how he kind of went through. And yeah, more female representation on Cardassia, please.
Yes.
Yeah, I did have this as a trivia for us for later, but to this date, she's still the only female Gull.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
that
was
needs
the first
to change.
and only female Gull.
Yeah.
I mean,
And she
in
was-
general, you don't see that many Cardassian militia women. Certainly not the kind of the main, on the ship. Any Glynns, Gulls, Leggetts. So yeah, great job.
Yeah, I mean, they've done it with the Romulans. We've seen some females Romulans. I mean, even back to TOS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
even in Prodigy this week. So let's start with our initial thoughts this episode. Kelvin.
Just starting off with the guests stars, I think they followed a very tried and tested route here of casting the British villains. You have the Romulan captain and the Cardassian Gull, both played by British actors with our commanding, menacing accents, and obviously even Galen and Picard as well. So there's a lot of, dare I say, Brits. They're not Brits, they're Cardassians and Romulans. But yeah, great guest stars, fantastic audio on them and commanding performances. But for the episode itself, I can really see why you've chosen this as a favorite, Christos. I remember as a child, this is the equivalent of getting all your action figures out of the box and playing with them, because they're all here. They're all in the episode. So yeah, it's so good to have a crossover, everyone coming together. And yeah, what a romp.
Yeah, I just wanted to read the first line in our TNG companion, and I just feel it's very appropriate to sort of summarize my initial thoughts. It says, dubbed the most Roddenberry-esque of TNG episodes by the staff, this background fan's delight pays homage to a unified view of life that the great bird infused his universe with. Like, that is the theme, and like this unifying, I mean, that is what Star Trek is. And this episode being high concept, when I love Joe Menosky episodes, like this hits everything that's Star Trek for me.
I mean, you two summed it up as to why I picked it. I mean, the allegory of all the humanoid races in the galaxy to mirror, all of the nation states in the world. Why I think of that episode as just that feel good, at the end of the day, we need to put our differences aside and learn to work together. And I think that's the message driving home at the end of this. Aside from the high concept, they do it in a way that is, it's a high pace action episode. The multiple use of alien species, the ships, there's some battle in this episode. It just brings a lot in, and there's some good dialogue in this episode between, Picard and the Professor, Picard and Troy, Picard and Crusher. There's so many good things that I think when it all lands in one episode, it makes for almost a perfect episode.
And one thing that I like about sort of the idea of that we're unified is that we have the founder, I don't know, what are we calling her?
Ancient humanoid.
Ancient humanoid. Yes, we have this ancient humanoid. They are admitting to, seeding the galaxy, but they're not seen as a god, right? They're just, this is what we've done. We're not any better than you. We just have progressed. And I love that we can have still a unifying, we all came from one thing and not have it be godlike.
It's science. I mean, they literally, it literally is delivering genetic code to all these planets. It is science.
This episode is a very sciencey episode. Obviously you go over to DS9 and you've got the prophets and all of the religious connotation. This is pure science, whether it comes to just genetics or whether it's kind of process involved in figuring out puzzles and theories. But it's a great one. Great time to be wearing a blue uniform.
Well, and this sort of answers the question, remember in Strange New Worlds, when they were like, well, what if I believe science is my God? Like, this episode answers that of how can science be a God? Well, this is how.
How this happened, billions of years prior. But, when they're sitting there in the lab and Beverly looks at it on the screen, because this is DNA. And it's literally that math language because it's numbers, it's science and numbers. And whether the millions and billions of years that have gone past, it's still the same language because math is the language. There's a little math moment for our Amy.
Yes. Oh, I've just got the chills. I love math. Math is eternal. Math is how we are going to learn to unite.
Moving on, I think for me, as I was saying, why did I pick this episode? I've likened when I tell people what's a good episode to watch if you've never seen Star Trek before, I like to think of this as one of those episodes I recommend to people. And it's because I think for the most part, it's not going to bore people. They're going to be excited. You can watch it. You're going to be into it because it's a fast moving episode. I think it represents so much of what Star Trek, The Next Generation and Star Trek as a whole is. And I feel like this is like an Indiana Jones episode almost, or like a scavenger hunt. There's so many things in this episode that this mystery leads us to. And I think it's very exciting. And if you really want to know what Star Trek's all about, including that awesome speech at the end of the episode, that is for me what is Star Trek. And it's a great way, I think, to throw this to a new potential viewer of Star Trek.
I like what you said there about the Indiana Jones esque nature, and I'm trying to think of another episode that may have gone down this route before, and I'm struggling. And it's great. I must bring it in now because I had a 30-year dilemma as a result of this episode with Generations. So the Kurlan Nakos that is presented, we've all seen in Generations the way Picard casually tosses it aside in preference to a photo album of his family. And so for 30 years now, I've been thinking there's a priceless object on Viridian 3. And I can't believe after the fuss he made in the chase, he would just leave it there. But then you see in Picard season 2, it's there. Somebody went back for it. He was reunited with it. I felt so happy when I saw that he actually was still in possession of this artifact. I thought Vash would have been there, digging it up, selling it for a Laura Latinum. Priceless. Very, very Indiana Jones-esque.
Yeah. Have you guys ever seen that in person before? It was at San Diego Comic-Con in 2019, and I think it was at STLV in 2019 as well on display.
Was it in the kind of the Picard
Yes.
museum of all these
Yes.
things? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if
that
that's the original.
museum was amazing. Like just walking through. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was crying when I just saw, oh my gosh, yes. Everything brought a tear to my eye. And I agree.
They really went for it with the text on all of the artifacts and things. They were filling in a lot of canon information about like the Stargazer years, etc. And they really went there. And I thought that's quite bold because they put that out there now in a museum for Picard.
Yeah. And I mean, that museum, I mean, it was interactive. You had music playing when you saw the Resican flute. They had the inner light music. I mean, you were surrounded with this TNG collection and love letter to the fans. And yeah, seeing that there, it took my breath away, in part because you have Patrick Stewart, who is exploring this Kurlan artifact with us. And his amazement and bewilderment and astonishment translate so well that you care about that artifact now.
I like the testing aspect as well of, can you identify the dynasty that it was from? And yeah, it was just great. He was really into it. Patrick Stewart really sold the idea of this is really something special, this artifact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of funny watching Picard act a little more boyish and for a change, because his professor's there and suddenly he's back to being, essentially a college student. I'm the student and my teacher is here, and it's just a different Picard, which is really great to see that aspect of him. I do think we'll get some explanation as to why we have in season 2, you see this in Picard. I think it's a pretty sure bet that the saucer of the Enterprise D is in that space dock that we've seen in the previews for Picard season 3. And so that would explain that they went back and salvaged the saucer and probably cleaned it up.
One thing that I find very interesting is when they are trying to put these puzzles together, and they're connecting the DNA strands, the proteins correctly, and then they see that it's this star chart. And it's just interesting, and I want to know how you feel. Like, why is there a meaning that the Klingons perceive it as a weapon, or the Cardassians perceive it as an amazing power source, but the Federation doesn't have a claim as to what it is? Do you think that signifies like you're supposed to hold off judgment before getting all the facts, and that the Federation is doing it right and these other civilizations? Kelvin, what do you think about that?
I think it might be a little bit of generalization of the species. Klingons love a good battle. It's a weapon. Cardassians like to be, powerful, in charge, the ultimate. It's a power source. What would the Romulans have thought it was if that was in the dialogue? Right. A better cloaking device. Who knows? The Ferengi. It says in the notes they wanted the Ferengi in it too, but it just got a little bit too crazy in the script. So they might have seen it as, something profitable, the keys to everlasting financial stability. So a bit of generalization, but yeah, I think that this is painting the Federation as being, again, true scientists with a hypothesis. Let's not jump to the results. Let's be methodical about it.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to help create that little bit of tension as to why there would be kind of an arms race per se to try to get who can get it first. Speaking of Klingon super weapons, one of the beefs I have with this episode is the way the Klingons just casually killed all the life on Indri 8. If the Klingons have that technology, that is literally, a planet killer. You might as well have the Genesis device almost. Like, we can show up, launch a whatever and kill all life on Earth, for example, or another planet. It would literally, I think that was a little overwritten the way it was, because literally that weapon of the Klingons, they could rule the galaxy with it.
Yeah, I've never given that much thought. In fairness, a similar casual throwaway event was the way the Iridian ship just exploded. And yes, Riker barks at Worf, what have you done? But that it was just kind of thrown away, saying, "Oh, I don't know why that ship blown up. The phaser was on minimal power. You've just killed a ship full of people, Worf. Get to the brig."
Yeah, it did that when they destroyed that planet. I also thought Genesis effect, or like how we have this terraforming and you have to make sure that there's no life, because any life will be destroyed when we launch this terraforming thing. So I could totally see that technology then being used as a weapon that the Klingons now possess. So for me, it seemed like, oh yeah, they're just terraforming it, but killing everything, using it as a weapon. So
Yeah.
Right. Like I said, I just think it's was a little bit lazy in the writing, because it left a big, I don't know, call it a plot hole, but wow, if the Klingons have that, imagine what they could do with that to an enemy. So just an interesting little thing there. For me too, in this episode, there's a couple of times I feel things are rushed. And you just mentioned one there with the Iridian ship that blows up. There could have been just a sentence or two more of dialogue that might have made that go over better. And a couple of other scenes, I think, like the way Professor Galen just, like, by the time Picard shows up in sickbay, Crusher's already done. Nope, can't do anything. And she's the only doctor attending to him. Meanwhile, in back of her, another person just kind of doing something sciencey that's not related to the fact that there's a man dying on the table, and Dr. Crusher's working by herself. I felt like there could have been a little more there.
Can I ask, Christos? I'm not coming for Bev, don't worry.
Yeah.
But she was, from a bedside manner perspective, this is someone that they've just established is Picard's surrogate kind of father figure. And he just walks in sick bay, took a massive blunt force phaser hit to the chest, nothing I can do.
Yeah.
That
is the point I'm making here. There could have been a little bit more dialogue between Picard and Crusher, and maybe even showing a little bit more of the medical team trying to do their thing before they come to there's nothing we can do here. So that is a kind of another little beef with this episode.
That's something that we would, what do you say, zhuzh it up?
That's how we would zhuzh it up.
Yes, we would fix that.
Yeah, we would, because we all know Picard and Crusher. We knew there were a little bit more that would be there. So we get to my third scene that I feel like was underserved, which is the Picard and Troy scene, where Galen has died and Picard is now altering the Enterprise's mission and making them late for conferences and things that you just, wow, he has the power to do that. And there doesn't seem to be this big, Starfleet's not barking at Jean-Luc to get his butt, to where he needs to be. They're just kind of casually defying orders, but it's okay. But like, the only person who's really trying to drive it home that this is an issue is Troy. I feel like this scene could have been a little longer, because poor Troy, there's two things going on. First off, every time Picard starts to talk, she just talks over him. I'm like, Troy, slow down, listen. And it's not her fault. And then I feel like, the way Picard just kind of throws her out of the office at the end of the scene was way harsh. And I don't know. Amy, what do you think about this scene, given our resident Troy expert?
Yes, this scene is very difficult to watch. She definitely gets a talking to by Picard. However, I feel that only strengthens their relationship. Like, who else is Picard going to talk that way to? Beverly, maybe. Will, I don't know. I don't think he would be that harsh to Will. But I love that, we get to see how she counsels Picard. Sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. But that's the case for any therapist. If your patient isn't ready to listen or to, hear other alternatives, yeah, Picard is it felt like all good things. Picard wants one more journey, one more mission, then that's what we're going to give him. And she brings that up. It's like, this is what you're doing. And all of the command people underneath you say, the delegation and the treaty and the conference that needs to happen is pretty darn important. And we're putting off a potential peace agreement for one man. So he should have at least validated her point better. Yeah.
He didn't validate it at all. He said we're inconveniencing some squabbling diplomats.
Yes.
I feel like there's a little similarity to Picard in this scene and the way that Janeway could be at times, where Janeway, it would get personal sometimes, and and Chakotay would take exception to that. I feel like that's exactly what was kind of happening here, but I feel like we don't see Troy after this scene. So my headcanon is that she said, screw it, I'm calling in sick the rest of this mission. I tried.
Can I Amy, please don't come for me. And I know this has been said on many episodes of other podcasts, but hey, it's my first one, so I'm allowed to bring it up. At the beginning of this episode, they've got a very humdrum routine mission, and there Troy is sat on the bridge. What is she doing? She's not needed for that mission. Who's doing her rota, her schedule? Surely that should be when she's doing personal appointments in her office, counseling people. They're not really going to need a Betazoid advisor when they're mapping protostars.
Yes,
So
and
now she's a bridge officer. Is she part-time? Is she on a job share? Why is she not doing her actual job?
And they even say, and she's like, Captain, I'm going to go walk in the Arboretum. No, Captain, I'm going to go to my office. Why don't you walk me to my office? Because I have a lot of patients, and people to talk to. Walk in the Arboretum. Come on, let's do something important that's, beneficial.
Yeah. And she hadn't taken that bridge officer's test yet. That's next season. So
that's true. So yeah, she's just wasting everyone's time.
Whereas there's a few times in this episode where after Crusher is basically activated, I will call it, and into the mystery, where you would think Crusher would be on the bridge because she's deep into. There becomes a point about halfway through the episode where it's literally like Picard, Crusher, and Data are leading the mystery. And the reason we don't see a lot of Riker is because Jonathan Frakes was directing. So Riker is purposely minimal in this episode. But I would have put Crusher on the bridge a few more times in this episode than she actually is, because she actually has a stake in what they're trying to do. Things I would judge. And so kind of like parlaying into Crusher there, Picard and Crusher, I feel in this episode, have a lot of great moments together. We see at least 2 different breakfast scenes that kind of just further on that they literally meet every day. Picard confides a lot in Beverly at the beginning of the episode about not having become an archaeologist and the disappointment that he put on Professor Galen, and seeks, either just a friend's ear and or some counsel from Beverly. And we see them actually, aside from all of that, literally work together in a very natural way. I don't by any means consider this to be a Crusher episode, but I feel like this is the way Crusher should have been used more in the series, as having more to do. And she's written beautifully as having something to do in this episode.
I love the character development of the relationship with Picard and Crusher in this almost the body language of Gates McFadden, so relaxed in the captain's quarters, feet up on the furniture, lab coat thrown over the chair. She spends a lot of time there, and that, out of work mode, that is something you don't get with any other character, certainly with Picard. So it was just so good to see. And it worked because they came back to it a few times after this episode.
Yeah, I really we're used to seeing them have breakfast together, But I love the second or the first time when, she grabs her lab coat and was like, see you in the afternoon. Like, it's just another, I'm off to work. We'll catch up later. And yeah, it's that comfort and that friendship and, possibly even more. We don't know, but that's where, the shipping starts, oh, she's always in his quarters at breakfast. What does that mean?
Yeah, can you imagine? The gossip column on the Enterprise.
Yes.
Rumors on the lower decks.
I feel like it's because of scenes like this that we felt Crusher was so underserved in the movies, and why is she suddenly like out of the picture and just this like bottom level character? And I also think that's why it seems like this are why people are so looking forward to Beverly Crusher's return in Picard season 3, because they're like, what happened to them that, we're watching Picard and there's just no mention of her in his life. What happened? Because they were this close.
And one thing with Beverly, like when they connect the proteins and it creates this diagram and we're trying to figure out the missing piece. And she's like, well, we'll have to run an algorithm so that the computer can extrapolate what the, missing parts are. And, we'll have to run this. It'll take a couple hours, and I'll need to get this done. So excuse me. And it's like, girl, she is smart. That is something like Geordi or Data would say. And she's handling it. And she's creating these algorithms and writing the program so that the computer can extrapolate the data. Like, this episode perfectly combines her medical and her science background. Like, it's so beautiful. And I wanted to ask Christos, when we see her in Conspiracy, is that after this?
Conspiracy season 1.
Oh no, I'm sorry, not Conspiracy.
Suspicions is like 2. Yeah. It's like 2 episodes after this.
Yeah, so this is that sort of introduction or just reinforcement that she not only is a fabulous medical doctor, but she's a scientist as well.
Yeah. It's funny. I often thought that the reason Beverly goes and does the processing of all this information was to free Data up to be in the scene in 10 Forward that follows with the Klingon. Like, that was just why they did it that way, was to give it like Beverly needs to be doing this, not Data, because Data needs to be in 10 Forward in the next scene. But I love that Beverly did it.
Yes.
But so a horrible scene in 10 Forward is actually fine because it actually has the other effect of giving Beverly this amazing job to do. Scientist, doctor, software developer.
Yeah. So it's funny now that we're talking about our good friend Nudak. I felt like he gives the weakest performance of anybody in this episode. There are times where I feel like he's not even trying to act. I'll go with you. Or whatever he says. Well, like, I just like, did you phone this in?
He's just like the least terrifying Klingon. It's almost quite slapstick, his performance.
Yes.
Well, and the problem is that we've had wonderful Klingon world development. And then we just sort of go back to season 1 or just, who is this Klingon? He's a captain? Come on. No, he's not the brightest. Like, how many times do you have to hit Data to realize, come on now. It just, it's too much, and that needs to be judged as well.
Yes, I would. One of the minor things I would fix about this episode.
I would also like to point out that you think of the Deep Space Nine connections to this episode. You go to Salome Jen's female shapeshifter, the founder. But that actor also played a Klingon on DS9 in Crossover in the first Mirror Universe episode. He was the guy who beamed onto the runabout and thought that Kira was the intendant, and then talks to Garak afterwards saying, I was as close to her as you are now, as I am to you. And it was a completely different character. So he was called Telok in Crossover and Nudak in this. So I thought that was a bit of a missed opportunity to show the Mirror Universe version of this character, but it was probably something to do with a writing credit. They didn't want to give royalties to the guy who wrote this episode. So, but yeah, awful character, and we had to suffer him twice.
And our final character, I think, device that's going on in this episode is, as we mentioned, Picard and Professor Galen in the first, quarter of this episode before Galen gets it. But you see a lot of conversations between him and Picard, and kind of spoke about this a little bit earlier about how Picard is suddenly the student again. Amy, what is your takes on Picard and Professor Galen?
I absolutely love it. In part, like, because I am a teacher and like have these students, I totally get Professor Galen calling him Mr. Picard. And he even tries to correct himself, like, oh, Captain Picard. But no, their relationship is that, yes, you can call me Mr. Picard, like that nostalgia is back with him in this archaeology. And one thing that we do get from the conversation and Picard actually talking about Galen, in Galaxy class, we did character profiles, obviously covering Picard. And one of the questions that we asked was, does Picard have any regrets? This is the first time, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, that he says he has a regret. But I love that it's not joining Starfleet, that, he doesn't regret not continuing his archaeology. He regrets that he has to turn down Professor Galen again. Like, what an amazing regret. And it just goes to his character. He doesn't have regrets. You don't live life with regrets because you're going to learn from them. And therefore, they become substantial and important. And we get that here when Picard is talking about Professor Galen. I love the relationship that we have there.
I think the Mr. Picard and Captain Picard is actually very subtle dig from Professor Galen to actually just put it out there that he disagrees so much with his choice of career in Starfleet. So when he's saying Captain Picard, it's actually it's loaded. There's a little bit of venom there. You did disappoint me. I think you're Mr. Picard, but here you are as Captain Picard. But when they, this interesting thing about you being a teacher, Amy, and you will see a student from many years ago who is clearly now a grown up and a different person. Think of what they've said about Picard as a youth, being stabbed through the heart, getting into fights. What kind of student would he have been for Professor Galen? For Galen to now see him as the stoic diplomat that we know him to be versus a tearaway when he was younger. He's so different.
No, I see. Okay, so my first year teaching pre-calculus honors AB, and in the fourth quarter, that's where we go to calculus. And I hadn't looked at calculus for 20 years. And so here I am teaching the class, and I have these two brilliant twins. Gosh darn them. And if they didn't push me to be a better teacher and to, well, Miss Nelson, how does it do this? What is the derivative? I'm like, oh my gosh, I bet. Let me answer you tomorrow. Like, they were pushing me, but we still had that respect. And I can see Picard being arrogant enough to be asking just the right questions, to be pushing Professor Galen, that he still has that respect, because those are the students that you're going to remember all these years later. And here we have Galen coming back to Picard and asking him, because he was that star student that was almost his equal.
Love it.
I would almost liken that too, as he probably was like a young Indiana Jones, just full of adventure and ready to go. And Galen probably saw that in his eyes. Like, you've got the spark. It comes naturally, that interest, because it is a lifelong hobby for Picard. So the spark was and is still there. I liken also these conversations between, when a parent or a figure or an authority figure or whatever in your life, where they have a plan for you, and it's not necessarily the plan you have for yourself. So you have to let them down. Think of, the doctor that wants their kid to grow up and be a doctor, or the family business we want to pass on to you. No, I want nothing to do with the family business. I want to go do this. So I think you see that a lot in life, where we have to choose what we want to do, not what others would choose for us. And Picard does that. And it just really does come back down to I have the guilt of, the guilt of letting that person down, but not of making the choice that I made. All
Did
right.
this episode resonate a little more in the rewatch since seeing the Picard and his father in Picard Series 2 that we saw? Because there is the scene where he says, I had a father, but this is the father who understood me. I've watched this episode countless times, but this is the first time I've rewatched it since season 2 Picard. So that exchange kind of meant a little bit more because you've seen the Maurice Picard in Picard season 2. So yeah, I thought that was handled pretty well. The relationship of not just a mentor, but someone you really look up to. And yeah, this is going to hurt like you're hurting a member of your family.
I don't want to go back and watch season 2 Picard again. But yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about that, but now that I've obviously seen season 2 of Picard, you're right. It does just further define who his father was. So that looking back, yes, you could see Galen being that person that Picard looked up to more.
Yeah, definitely knowing the relationship was not really all that good. And then now having Picard season 2, you're right. It does add another depth, a level to that whole conversation. And what I liked is that Picard knew enough about Galen's family to say, yeah, your kids didn't follow in your footsteps. So I was sort of the son that he never had, or the son that understood him. So there was that reciprocity between the two that was just beautiful.
All right. Moving on to our final topic. I like to call this one of the most important moments in Trek history that is never mentioned again. And of course, that is the heart and soul of this episode, of the information that is revealed from our ancient humanoid, that of course all humanoid life in the galaxy is of the same, has that common DNA thread, and it's from the same, everyone is a descendant of this original species. But this is never brought up again. And I see this as something that everyone says about this episode. Kelvin, what do you feel about the idea that, Galen and Picard and Crusher and Data kind of come across literally the biggest revelation of our time?
Yeah, I mean, this really is. It's really rewriting the history books, isn't it? It is such a monumental discovery in itself, as Galen was saying it would be, but for it not to be mentioned, I think this is a prime example of the serialized nature of TNG. It's just so standalone. But just like, think about it. Think of all the episodes that have involved kind of time travel, erasing from history, like temporal Cold Wars. What a great opportunity to go back and get rid of this species, and then everyone would be gone. They're so important. And then, what are they? And again, this is, cover your ears, Amy, if you don't want me to say it, but the crossover with Prodigy, I think that the Dal revelation of the species that he is in this week's episode, I saw some parallels to that species. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to ruin it for Amy, but it made me think of, if Dal's got multiple DNA in him, this species were responsible for forming all of those different discrete DNAs for different species. So yeah, I saw a little connection there.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that because I literally just watched it a few hours ago, but you're absolutely right. And listeners, Amy is sitting here looking at us like, what the hell are you talking about? But
please talk freely. It really will not ruin it for me. Because I was actually wondering, especially now with Prodigy, like at the beginning, they're surveying these protostars, so that of course made my ears tingle. That's the beginning of a star, right? And so we have that parallel story, this little foreshadowing of this beginning of life, because that was their initial mission, right? Was looking at the protostar.
So the stellar nursery is foreshadowing that this ancient species is, the caretakers at the nursery.
Yeah, and can we just talk about like how bonk on the head it is, to steal a mission log phrase? Like, it's obvious. She's like, yeah, maybe we look like you. We have this humanoid shape, which totally always reminds me of Marina Sirtis telling, people keep asking her, why are all the aliens looking like humanoids? Well, that's because us actors have 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, and a torso. Like, how do you want us to change? We are all this humanoid shape. So we have this ancient humanoid who is just reiterating. And why can't we see that we are all the same with just variations? The color of skin, what the heck? We are still humanoid. Like, why is it taking this episode so brilliant, bonk on the head, but yet doesn't translate to we are one united human race?
But what a happy accident that basically they are creating in-story, in-universe explanations for problems with production and lack of CGI technology available in the 90s, but with this such a grand theory of, yes, everyone does have 2 arms and 2 legs because we made them that way genetically. It is so clever to cover up that kind of plot device with a real subject matter. Well done.
It's like in season 4 of Enterprise, where we explain the Klingon ridges and lack thereof in the original series. Like, they went and created a sciencey reason for it to be that way. And, I'm like, okay, I didn't necessarily need you guys to do that, but I'll take it. It definitely, it tracks.
Fabulous point. Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's jump into some of our trivia notes from this amazing episode. Amy, why don't you kick us off with our first trivia point?
Well, when it appeared that the episode would run short, Ronald D. Moore added a scene in which Mr. Mott is tested by Dr. Crusher as one of the 17 crew members said to come from non-Federation worlds. But this was cut from the final episode. The scene would have thus established that Belarus 9 is not a Federation member. The scene was included as a bonus feature on the TNG Season 6 Blu-ray, which Galaxy Class covered those deleted scenes, if you'd like to go back and listen. The episode reveals that 17 people aboard the Enterprise are from non-Federation planets. It's a great scene, and wish that we had it as true canon.
Yeah. It blows me away that at one point the episode was running short, only because I pointed out several scenes that needed a little bit more exposition that would have done better from them. So you could have still left this scene out, and obviously we got to a full episode one way or another. But yeah, I can't believe that they didn't look at, well, we should just try and make these other scenes a little longer, a little better, or maybe it was a scene that was shot later as a pickup because they were short, and then I don't know. But
there's so many Bolians in Starfleet that I can't believe they're a non-Federation world as well. However, it does give credit to the fact that there is the Bank of Boleus that is mentioned in Deep Space Nine. So if they were in the Federation, they wouldn't have the currency. Therefore, no need for a Bank of Boleus.
Question. So then are any of the Belerians, are they in Starfleet, or are they just working adjacent, like at star bases?
No, so but they are in Starfleet. There's Starfleet officers, many of them. In fact, the first one, Captain Rix in Conspiracy, the Academy cadet in Allegiance, she was Bolian as well. So you can still be in Starfleet, but not be affiliated member of the Federation. So like Ensign Rowe, for example, Bajor isn't in the Federation, but there's lots of Bajorans in Starfleet.
True. Okay.
But yeah, I just find it surprising. They seem such a big species when you think of like Andorians, Tellarites. You would just assume Valaris would have joined the Federation.
Well, because it never was seen, you can still have that in your headcanon. They are part of the Federation. That's the whole point.
I do have a little headcanon with this episode. So in the scene where Galen is explaining the route that they're going to take, and they say we go to Deep Space 4, they say they're going to take in what sounds like, in the pronunciation, an Elorian transport. And that would be the first name drop of the species, Guinan species, the Elorians, which we don't establish till Generations. So I think it's just a mispronunciation by the actor, and it's not anything to do with that. But my headcanon is it's an Elorian transport. So you've got the listeners, Guinan species.
Okay, so when I watched the episode in preparation for this, I did watch with the closed captioned on, and it was a different spelling. But man, I was reading those closed captions. They were misspelling and had wrong punctuation, like didn't have apostrophes. So I'm not going to base it. And I do like your headcanon. So that's now a Lorian with me too.
Let's see here. Kelvin, what's our next trivia?
Yeah, so director Jonathan Frakes was really disappointed at not being able to shoot outside in this episode. I think it doesn't look like Planet Hell. That's the way it goes. But the money was being spent across the street at Deep Space Nine. And we don't think that's a secret. It's very well known. But set designer Richard James noted that it was impossible to shoot outside as the crew had been unable to find a salt flat without any vegetation, as the episode demanded. So, yeah, what do we think of that? We had the Planet Hell, the rock face that was conveniently designed with steps. What's all that about?
Well, if they were looking for salt flats, they just needed to come out to Salt Lake City. We have amazing salt flats just west of the Great Salt Lake. Beautiful white. There's been a lot of movies filmed out there. So, gosh darn it, missed opportunity. They could have been to my home state.
This episode marks the first time that humans, Klingons, Romulans, and Cardassians appear in the same episode. I think it's funny that we don't, for me, I guess that kind of surprised me as well. I guess it had to happen sometime. But I guess after watching so much of like the end of DS9 and things like that, that became like the norm during the last few seasons that, with the Dominion War and whatnot, you were seeing all these species together on the regular. And many more. So, but this would be the first time that they kind of crammed everybody into one episode.
It's a shame we didn't get to see the Romulan warbirds, because that would almost have validated it a little bit more, that you see, obviously, the Klingon ships, the Cardassian ships, obviously the Enterprise. Yes, you see all of the species on the planet scene, but it would have been nice to have the warbird shown as well.
Yeah, that was, I noticed, very conspicuously left out. Yeah. Okay, I have a question. It just totally popped into my mind talking about this ancient humanoid that seeded all these different, and you're talking about human, Klingon, Romulan, Cardassian. Could that idea sort of have been the genesis of the Xindi species? And is that another type of ancient Xindi that spread seed, and so that we have those 5 different Xindis? Are those different species? Because it doesn't really hold true to I'm a humanoid form, because you look at the Xindi, like the insectoids and the fish ones, like they don't look alike.
No, I would say scientifically the Xindi kind of situation is following the rule of where you have different types of humanoid species evolving on the same planet, one always becomes dominant and the others become extinct. And that is, well, here we have a situation where none of them were dominant and they all evolved together and became slightly different.
Okay.
But here we all are in the same environment. So I suppose you would say, as a genetic marker from this species, maybe the avians and the aquatics aside, a lot of them still do have 2 arms, 2 legs. They're just, some of them are hairy and some of them are scaly. So it would track. But yeah, I think it's more the whole, there is no dominant Zindi species. They've all just evolved and worked together.
Right. And you can almost liken it a little bit to Earth with the way we have in the future, we have cetacean ops where we have aquatic mammals that are actually contributing. And we see that a little bit more with the humpback whales in Star Trek 4, that we're not the only intelligent species on the planet. And they're not the only species capable of intelligent communication.
I love that. Oh my gosh, love that.
So
this morning.
If there is, if we ever invent a true universal translator, which, let's face it, we're not too far off with Earth languages now, are we going to soon be able to communicate with dolphins? And then we could be our own little Zindi if we can bring in the dolphin special emissary to a meeting. So yeah, it's not too far away, let's face it.
I think you guys are starting to touch on the reason why I went vegan. I truly believe that our species of our planet, there are other intelligent species on our planet, and they aren't ours to go beat up on and use and enslave.
How cool if our international or our translator would, translate dog or cat, I mean, we sort of we have this intrinsic, I know what my dog is trying to tell me. Come on, Lassie, what are you trying to tell me? Where's Timmy? So.
Well.
I mean, they tell you when they want to go outside to use the restroom. I mean, that's, yeah. But wow, very interesting little rabbit hole there. But I think that was good.
Well, one more bit of trivia. The Cardassian transporter effect from Star Trek Deep Space Nine is used here.
I love that. I live for these details. And we got a lot of kind of continuity errors in Deep Space Nine, where they would have the runabout playing the Cardassian computer kind of Alexa noises. So the fact that you have the proper transporter signature from the Cardassians, that's like chef's kiss for me. It's done right.
Well, they're like, hey, we spend all this money developing this DS9 stuff. We might as well use it, like the same way we see, I think Timescape is an episode that's a few after this one, and they used the runabout sets on TNG since, hey, we have these already. Let's go shoot on it.
That transporter, it sort of makes me wonder logistically, and maybe you can get this timeline down for me. So they combine their 3 pieces, the Klingon, Cardassian, and the Federation, and then they're like, ooh, here it is. And this should be right here at this point. The Cardassian, bam, gone, transported out. How much time do you think it took for the Klingon and the Federations to figure out, yeah, that's a SAR system, but we need to go to this other place because that one is, sort of the wild goose chase. And we're going to prepare in case the Cardassians fire on us, and we're going to, fake this thing. How much time? Because when they get to the planet, the Cardassians are right there. Christos.
Yeah, there's 2 things to unpack with what you just said there. First off, remember Geordi's in engineering, and he discovers somebody messing with the computer, and it's the Cardassians. What we don't hear is, it's the Cardassians trying to get into the Enterprise computer. So they're already aware of the duplicitous nature of the Cardassians not being authentic. So when Crusher's research figures out where the final planet is, they stage the reveal to be another planet. And then, of course, like you said, the Cardassians check out and they're gone, and the Enterprise is free to go to the correct planet. What doesn't make any sense is what you just said is the Enterprise gets to the right planet, and then the Cardassians show up almost immediately. So there would have been no time for that unless they were double outsmarted, and the Klingon or the Cardassians maybe put a tracking device on the Enterprise, thinking, well, just in case they run off, in case we're being double crossed, we're gonna do this. We're gonna double cross the double crossers.
Yeah. I like that solution. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to our final thoughts on this episode. Kelvin, what is your sum of the chase?
Sci-fi at its best, with a great storytelling, a great reveal at the end, bringing, using all of your colored crayons in the box, in that all the species are here. It's fabulous. It shows some of our favorite characters at their best. And yeah, it is just top tier Trek.
I agree. This episode, yeah, like I said at the top, just checks off all the box of what is Star Trek. Amazing character development as we went through each one with sort of Picard, but yes, we get it. And yeah, all of the different species that we get to see one-on-one, now they're interacting and we get these, stereotypical responses and like, oh, well, of course, the Romulans would be sneaking around and following. That's just so typical. And so we get that. And then we get the huge, amazing concept of that we are all united. Come on. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. And Christos, it's going to be the one that I recommend for new Star Treks. This absolutely is the episode. I usually say Parallels because it's so fun and it's a fun timey-wimey. But this one gets the Trek philosophy where people always ask, why do you love Star Trek? It's this philosophy that translates into my life. Yes, you may be a different race. We are from an ancient humanoid. We are all the same. Let's treat and love each other as much as I love you guys because you're my friends. We are all the same. Oh, I just love it.
I feel like my work here is done. I chose the episode that got you guys just as excited as I get about it. And so this is why I don't need to say anything else about this episode. You guys said it perfectly. It's just so good. And it's a near perfect episode. Although, yes, everything you heard us talk about is like nitpicking, and that's in the best way. It is a near perfect episode for me. And I'm just excited that you guys like it as much as I do. And it's not like Christos came in here and picked Sub Rosa and I have to fight you both. And I feel like it wasn't even a true Beverly episode too. So there's this unbiased Christos for you guys. Kelvin, want to tell us about next week's episode?
I do. How exciting. So yeah, just a little tease for next week. We're continuing with our holodeck malfunctions series on part 5. And we're going to discuss our man Bashir from Deep Space Nine. So season 4, episode 9. So that will be fabulous.
Is this, you're going to have to just give me more because, my Deep Space Nine is a little weak. Is this like the James Bond Dr. Bashir one?
It is exactly that one.
Okay. All I remember is how great Bashir looks in a tuxedo. That's all I remember.
Coming from the very good season 4 in general. Season 4 kind of hits very strong for DS9. I think it does for almost all the series. Like, if you think about it, Voyager's season 4 is amazing. TNG was hitting it out of the park by season 4.
Yeah. Enterprise as well.
Enterprise that's my favorite season of Enterprise is 4.
Agreed.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Even Amy would have us believe season 4 of Discovery was good.
I was just gonna say, and Discovery season 4, that one knocked it, out of the ballpark. It was amazing. Yes.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. You can also tweet your thoughts at AllGoodPod. We would love for you to reach out. We love the interaction. Please follow the network on Twitter and Instagram at BQN Podcasts. We have also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching their master feed. So, Amy, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me here on the network where I'm co-hosting Galaxy Class, as I have mentioned a couple times. I'm also on Union Federation talking New Trek and the Orville. I am on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson, but my favorite place is right there in the Facebook group, BQN Collective. And Kelvin, where can people find you? They want to talk to you. They want to say hello, welcome to All Good Things. Where can they do that?
Oh, lovely. I'd be delighted. So you can also find me here on Facebook in the BQN network page, but on Instagram and Twitter, if we're allowed to still be on Twitter, you can find me at Kelvin's Timeline. So, Christos, where can people find you when you're not spreading your DNA fragments all over San Diego?
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Hush. Takes one to know one. Let's see here. You can find me on the Facebook group, the BQN Collective, as well as on What's the T-Bev, where I have a different LGBTQIA or ally on the show every week, learning more about their personal Trekdom at What's the T-Bev on both Instagram and Twitter, or at Greek Geek SD on both Twitter and Instagram as well. Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast and leave us a star rating and a written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcast with our master feed by searching BQN. This way you won't miss out any of our favorite shows like Union Federation, Galaxy Class, History with the Zalagis, Infinite Diversity, Mickey's Marbles, Trexperts Quiz, and What's the T-Bev.
At this time, we would like to thank our associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Tim Cooper. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Join the Hive and enjoy It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join our meetings on the Hive Mind on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
Thank you all for listening, and we hope you'll join us as we search out
All Good Things.